Hello, everyone. I'm Silent Death, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Science Harder Campaign. Last time, we got the dynamic Duno up into orbit, and that was one launch window before the transfer window. I've fast-forwarded another week to open up a new launch window. You can see over there in the alarm clock, it's just opened up about an hour and 40 minutes ago. And we have a day, an hour, and 30-ish minutes until our transfer window. So what we need to do first is get something up to the dynamic Duno to refuel it so that it can make the trip to Duno. And for that, we have this little rocket here. Being that we don't have any 2.5 meter parts, we're having to be a little bit creative in how we do that. Instead of using like 2.5 meter fuel tanks, we're using two tricouplers, one on the top and one on the bottom, with a bunch of fuel tanks between them. That keeps the engines from being able to draw fuel from them. And I've also have good speed automatic fuel pumps all set up to handle the pumping out of fuel and stuff. So all we should have to do is dock this thing in, and it should suck out all the fuel. We are, however, using the liquid fuel booster that we picked up as an experimental part last episode to help get this into orbit. So we'll just get this up there, get it into a rendezvous eventually, and then we'll move on to our next launch for this launch window. I had hoped that our lower booster stage would be enough to get us close to a circular orbit, enough that where the relatively low thrust or the extremely low thrust of the nuclear engine would be able to just round us out. However, that is not the case, and we are plummeting into the atmosphere with a thrust-to-weight ratio of 0.14. Very, very not good. So it is time for plan B. Basically the same thing. You'll notice that our rocket is tall and thin. So what we're doing is angling our rocket at 45 degrees because we still have a great deal of horizontal velocity. So the theory is that we can use the body lift from Ferrum Aerospace to slow down our descent and hopefully speed up fast enough horizontally that we can still pull out of the atmosphere and get a circular orbit that way. We are dipping pretty low in the atmosphere, but if you watch our vertical speed, you'll see that we stop eventually accelerating downward and start accelerating upward until we stop falling altogether. Thankfully, we do manage to pull out of the atmosphere and get ourselves into orbit. Using a bit more fuel than I would have liked, but getting most of the fuel there is better than getting none of the fuel there. So we just circularize our orbit a little bit and set up our rendezvous with the dynamic Duno. And now it is time for our next launch. For our runway launch this week, we have another craft that is kind of at the edge of what might be possible. We are calling this the long neck Goose due to the 4 cargo bays. It is carrying the comsats for Duna and Ike, all 6 of them, with a little bit of a booster to get it to Duna from orbit. All in all, I think it's something like 17 tons cargo. So that makes this craft a little bit underpowered with the few engines that it has. Which is why we have to use the rockets to get off the runway. This craft has more issues than just a low thrust-to-weight ratio. Though the thrust-to-weight ratio is mostly just because I was being a bit stubborn. When I noticed that the thrust-to-weight was so low, but low enough to technically get off the runway, kind of. Or at least fly, kind of. I didn't really want to add more engines, as that would take basically completely redesigning the craft to get a higher thrust to weight ratio. So I just decided to try to go with this and see what would happen. But I'm sure that's a good idea. The other issues are it suffers from a degree of mop tuck, which is when the center of lift shifts forward, mostly due to the canards. The relative amounts of lift they provide as you go faster and faster changes. So the center of lift moves slightly forward as I go faster and faster, moving it ahead of the center of mass. What I've done to somewhat combat that is use the good speed automatic fuel pumps to pump all the fuel from the rear forward so that the rear tanks drain first. That's somewhat helpful, but the downside of that is that the fuel doesn't really get drained from the jet engines. It only gets drained when you turn on the rockets. So the last little bit of the jet-powered phase and the first little bit of the rocket power phase are extremely difficult to control and quite unstable. Again, really the most serious thing is the thrust-to-weight ratio. So I probably won't be using this craft again for anything else, but if it ain't broke, well, I guess it is broke. Well, we make do with what we have. That's what we did not quite make it into orbit, but I think we might be close enough to pull something off. We will, but the decoupler. And then, let's see, let's switch to docking mode to get this out. Actually, or let's try just, tossing it out. This way. I thought that might happen. The other direction. See if that's enough. Doesn't have any RCS on it. And that is a wee bit of a problem. Now then, we should be able to just fling it out this way. Alright, we'll switch to it. Quickly. Then, prograde. Hopefully it's going to be facing the right direction, and it does not look like it is. Or is it? Are these guys upside down? Wake away. What are you being controlled from? I bet they're upside down. That is going to make things difficult. Control from there? Nope, they're not upside down. I don't know what it was being controlled from then. Alright. These were shut off. They are now fine. Let's do solar panels. Apparently not everyone has solar panels set properly. Engine. Just enough to get us into orbit so that we can recover our other craft. Plenty of thrust to weight on this, and we should have enough fuel, I hope. That's enough. Switch to the other vessel. Alright, we'll close all these and try to make it back to the Space Center. Try being the operative word. Which is probably going to take a fair amount of time, since we're going to have to basically circumnavigate the globe. We don't have anything we can do to give us any more fuel. So I don't think so. A little bit of liquid fuel there, some monoprop. I don't think we have enough monoprop to get us all the way up in orbit. Did it get knocked off? I thought we had one built into this. Maybe not. That's going to be an issue. Alright, we'll just try this and see what that does to our periapsis, which we cannot see. Periapsis? Can I like look inside the planet and find it? Maybe. It is just too difficult to see it. We have no idea where it is. It's somewhere inside the planet. It would be nice to know kind of an idea of what it could possibly be. But we are speeding up. Let's see. We will time warp this and I'll be right back. Whew, we made it. We pulled out. Now then, we just have to get back. All the way to the other side of the planet. This is going to take a little bit. I will be back shortly. with the long-necked Goose and a Dudrick coming safely down on the ground, it is time to check on the payload. We want to get it pretty much a perfect 100-kilometer orbit, just to make sure that our calculations for whatever the transfer window stuff are as accurate as possible. We would also like to have it perfectly on the equator. Ideally, I would get a satellite contract, an equatorial satellite contract. That would be the easiest way to do that. But I don't know if we're going to be able to pick that up in time. Pretty sure there's another way to check it out over with Kerbal Engineer somehow, like the latitude or longitude of the node angle, something of that nature, but I'm not sure where that setting is. So we'll kind of hope this is correct, and we'll see what... Well, I guess it tells us at the bottom what the heading is, so we can change that and get everything set up properly. Then I remembered that the moon is right on the equator, so we can use that to kind of get our nodes aligned and everything. Now we just need to dock our refueler and refuel the dynamic Aduna, and then everyone will be ready to go to Duna. In the same way that we did with our probes, or comsats, we need to make sure this has as close to a perfect 100-kilometer circular orbit and zero inclination around the equator as possible. Just to make sure that our ejection numbers and everything match what the transfer window planner gives us. It's probably actually more important for this one since it's going to have a longer burn. So we just quickly do that, and then everything is set up. And with that, everything is ready to go to Duna, but that'll have to wait for next episode. Like if you like, subscribe if you're not, leave a comment if you have anything to say. I do read all the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.